Hi, everyone. Shannon here from The Girl Who Couldn't Save. And today I'm talking about my anti Dave Ramsey debt path. So, how I paid off, now it's actually up to $21,000 of debt, not following Dave Ramsey's advice. So, in this video, I'm going to be talking about the tips and tricks that I disagree with Dave Ramsey about. And I'm going to be talking about what I did instead that helped me to pay off debt. I'm going to be going through a blog post that I wrote just because it's so much easier just to read right off of here and tell it to you. But if you are into things like paying off debt, saving money, investing your money for the future, and you are a small business owner, a coach, a female entrepreneur, a freelancer who has fluctuating income, who's wondering how you can actually do this stuff with your income fluctuating, not always being guaranteed and not stable, but you want to be debt free. You want to have a 6 month savings account. You want to invest in a 401k or a Roth IRA or just learn what these words mean. Then subscribe to my channel, hit the like button on this video, hit the bell so you'll be notified when this actually goes live and you can get more videos and more content like this. All right, guys, so let's dive into today's video about my anti Dave Ramsey debt path. Now, here's what I've learned kind of about diving into the financial world. So we know there's Susie Orman, we know there's Dave Ramsey. I'm sure there's other big people out there, but they're kind of the first two people that come to my mind when it came to me getting serious about paying off my debt and getting serious about creating a real adult financial future. So I went to these people first, and every single time I watched a Dave Ramsey show or a YouTube video, or I watched Susie Orman speak on stage one time, I just always felt like shit. Like I would walk away from these things feeling like I'm an idiot for getting into debt. I am an absolute idiot for getting into debt. I should have never started a business. I should just get a 9 to 5, like grind it out, live off rice and beans, all that stuff. And it just never worked for me. I tried to do it over and over and over again, cut everything out, save every penny, create some kind of financial stability, and it just never worked. So, if that's anything like you, if you're a person who's like, I like to go out to eat, I like to buy lattes, I like to do nice things, and I want to enjoy my money, I also want to be financially responsible. How can I do both of those things? And that's what I feel like the financial world really doesn't address. They're not addressing our emotions. They're not addressing the emotions that people have around debt. They're not addressing the things of why people got into debt. They're not addressing the things around, hey, how can I still enjoy this debt payoff journey and stick with it and then not like go back into debt again because I was so starved for living my life and spending money that then I went nuts the next time I got out of debt, right? And I thought there's got to be a better way. So this is kind of like the journey that I went on. And here's the things that I have found that I disagree with Dave Ramsey about. Number one, he says that credit cards are the devil. This is like the number one thing he seems to talk about a lot is that credit cards are the worst, pay for everything in cash, envelopes, blah, blah, blah. Like I hear a lot of financial people always talk about that too, right? Everything needs to be paid for in cash and blah 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 and don't use a credit card and don't get a credit card and never it's like, well, you need to get a credit card in order to build your credit. And also credit cards can be amazing when you use them in the right way. Now that I am almost completely debt free, I am starting to see how my credit card is actually making me more money. The problem is, and I understand where Dave's coming from, is if you're anything like me, once you get a credit card increase, once they increase your limit on your credit card, you just want to spend, 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 spend until that limit is reached. So I understand why people say credit cards are the devil. But now that I'm getting to this really financially secure place and I am becoming credit card debt free, I am now starting to getting paid for using my credit card. How amazing is that? Like the banks are paying me, and that's really how you could use a credit card. So I looked up some YouTubers who actually they open up all these different credit cards and use them to the max, and they're able to do these amazing things like go on these trips or fly first class or stay at really nice hotels. I saw another guy, another big YouTuber who stays at like the nicest hotels in the world because he used a certain credit card that got him points to get there. It's about using it in a way to your advantage. So I like to kind of say this like, don't let the banks fuck you. You can fuck the banks after you become financially stable. Like once you're able to become credit card debt free, keep using your credit card because you're going to finally reap the rewards that you should have had all along. So that's number one. Credit cards are not the devil. Number two, a $1,000 emergency account is not going to cut it, Dave. So this is a part of his baby steps, right? Is creating that $1,000 emergency account. And I'm pretty sure he says to do this first. And I love that. I totally agree with him. Create an emergency account first. I would pay off credit card debt and get back into credit card debt because I didn't have an emergency account. So when my business would make a whole bunch of money, I'd throw all my money at the credit card would go down to zero. And then once I had a bad month, a bad launch, something else happened in my business. For you, it could be a car problem, it could be medical bills, it could be you need to take your dog to the vet. Something happens that you're not prepared for financially. And then where does it go? Back onto a credit card. But a credit card is not supposed to be used as an emergency account. All right. Again, we want to use our credit card to fuck the banks, not get you fucked. All right. So, I disagree with the $1,000 emergency account because right now in 2021, $1,000 does not sustain enough people. It's not really going to cover a lot of emergencies. If you have a medical emergency, if you need to pay a deductible on your health insurance, $1,000 doesn't cut it. And even think about it this way. If you in the next week lose your job, will $1,000 sustain you through the next month? No, probably not. And that's how you'll get into credit card debt. That's how you get into a lot of other financial issues. So for me, what I say is create a 3-month savings account. Because I am an entrepreneur, I actually created a 6-month savings account. And that's because right now in my life, I am welcoming another baby. So I have lots of different things where I'm going to need more savings. I'm going to need more leniency for things of fluctuating income. And I know that's going to be happening. So if you are an entrepreneur, you are a small business owner, and you know you don't have any current stable income coming in right now, what I would suggest is a 6-month savings account. If you do have some type of stable income coming in right now, even if you have a business and you know that it's stable for the next couple months, you got tons of clients, payments coming in, you know it's stable, you can create a 3-month savings account then too. But $1,000 is not enough, Dave. All right, moving on to number 3. So he seems to be a big proponent of this one, paying off your mortgage. And I have even had clients come to me and say, Shannon, I could pay off my mortgage. And that's kind of our goal because we follow Dave Ramsey. We follow his baby steps. And I'm like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. There's ways to make more money. So for some people, this can kind of be a personal decision. Do you want to have that big expense taken off your monthly expenses? Maybe you do, but I want you to know the whole picture. Okay. I want you to know that if you do pay off your mortgage, you're going to be losing money. And what I mean by that is let's take an example. All right. For this example, you dump $40,000 to start investing in index funds. So this could be index funds, 401ks, Roth IRAs, anything like that. All right. And instead of dumping it into your mortgage, you put it into those. All right. So any of those types of accounts. And over the next 10 years, you contribute $21,000 every year to your index fund. Your Roth IRA is going to cap out around 6,000, and then also putting money to your 401k will probably cap you out. I think it's around 20,000 or 15. It's different for self-employed people. It will cap out too. So once you cap those out, start an index fund. So instead of putting all of that money to the mortgage, like I said, you put it into index funds. Here's how this is going to play out. Instead of having just a paid off house that is not going to be making you any more money, I'm looking around at my house as I'm saying that. It just kind of sits there, right? and you only get a return when you sell the house, think about this instead. Let's say in 10 years, you will have a paid off house, an extra $118,831, and you can still sell that home to make money just like you're thinking right now, right? Imagine that. That is way more financially smarter than it is just to have a paid off house and just to make money from selling the home. $118,000 more. Now, this only works when your mortgage interest rate, I think we say 4%. I believe that's what I kind of worked out the math to be. Now, I also use an investment calculator to calculate these numbers. I can leave the link down below for that. So, I looked at it from another angle too. This was if you had $40,000 to dump into the fund today. And most people don't have that. Mostly when I talk about people paying off their mortgage, they're like, no, I don't have like a whole big fund right now. I was just going to put an extra $2,000 a month, okay, to my mortgage to pay it off early. But let's say instead you invested that $2,000 for the next 10 years, okay, into index funds instead of putting that money to your mortgage. And again, same thing, Roth IRA, 401k, index funds. You will be left with a paid off house, an extra $100,000, and you'll be able to make money from selling your home. Now, if you do it the other way, it's I have a paid off house and I can make money once I sell my home as long as the market is good. This way, you get an extra $100,000 for doing nothing for doing the same thing you were going to do before. So this, Dave, is where I disagree with you. And a lot of people have also disagreed with him about this too. So if you're interested, I have another YouTube video where I have a photographer client that was wondering, Shannon, should I just pay off my mortgage early or should I invest it? And I walk through that with her too. All right. I disagree with Dave about cutting your retirement contributions to pay off debt. Dave, no. For the love of God, Dave, no. Now, here is where I really ramped up my financial philosophy. I kind of discovered like, this doesn't make sense. And this is why. Paying off your debt. When you're paying off your debt, think about it this way: cut the things that aren't wealth building. So if you have a 401k, it is building you wealth. Remember, you will also get capped out every single year at contributing to that 401k. So you miss a year of contributing to that 401k, you have missed that time of contributing the $20,000 that you could to your 401k. And that's it. It's gone. It's no longer building and compounding, right? But I think about when people start to pay off their debt, they're not thinking in terms of, what are the things I need to cut that aren't wealth building? Like, for example, something that you could cut that's not building your wealth is getting a car that's more affordable. If you're driving on a car right now and the payments are really high and the insurance is really high, sell it, buy a used Toyota Corolla or buy a used Honda Civic or something. Buy something that's more affordable because that car is not a wealth building activity. Your 401k is. And time is on your side in a 401k. With a car, your money is just sunk and just keeps sinking and just keeps going down, right? There's no wealth building that's going to happen with your car. It's paid for, that's it, it's done. All right. So it's really important here that you figure out what are the things I need to cut in my budget that aren't going to build my wealth. I'm not going to cut the things that are going to build my wealth. Okay. Going into a restaurant until your debt is paid off. This is another big one, he says. And this is why I could never listen to them, because I fucking love restaurants. I love coffee. I love restaurants. I love, right? Now, what I will say is that there were different things that I stopped doing. So for me, going to a restaurant is more important than getting weekly manicures. It was more important than getting my hair done at a fancy salon. And I started using box dye. I stopped buying, new clothes monthly and just bought a couple pieces that I could use, over and over and over again. So there was definitely a change in my spending habits. But I wasn't going to cut back on the thing that brought me so much joy, because I would not have stayed consistently on this paying off debt journey if it meant I couldn't go into a restaurant. Now, for you, it might be something different. All right. Maybe for you, it's like you love buying clothes. Clothes feel really good on you. You love it. But maybe you can cut back on eating takeout. Maybe you can cut back on, spending money on your car. Maybe you can cut back on buying jewelry or something like that. Maybe there's some space in your budget where you can figure out what makes me feel really good and what doesn't. What do I need to keep spending money on so I can feel good and I can stick with this debt payoff journey? But for me, not going into a restaurant, not eating takeout is a hell no. No, 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 no. I will not give that up, but I will give up other things. So there were different things I changed, and I did change my spending habits most of all. All right, guys. So let's jump into now what did work for me. Like, if these things, weren't working, and I talked about the things that did work instead, what other things did work with me on this debt payoff journey, how I've paid off $21,000 of debt. Number one, getting really honest with myself about why I was in debt in the first place. Spending can make you feel powerful. Like it's like when you walk into a store and you want to have that pretty woman moment. You don't want people to think that you can't afford something or you can't buy something there, right? I could buy this. Of course I could. I'll just put it all on my credit card. Like I always had this kind of thing in my head about like, are people going to judge me if I can't afford something? And it probably goes back to my childhood and not being able to afford things and not being able to keep up with my friends and not having a lot of money that my friends did have. And I hated that I had to say no to things. I hated that I couldn't go on ski trips because it was too expensive. I hated that I had to say no to trips to Europe because I couldn't go because it was too expensive. So when I kind of got myself into debt, it was like a credit card was almost freedom for me. Like finally, I can do these things that I had to say no to my whole life. When in reality was I should have been saying no to them again. Or I should have just had a budget. If I would have had a budget, it would have been fine. I could have picked and chose and figured out what things I really wanted or didn't. Number two, what was I scared of by becoming debt free? What were the negative consequences to becoming debt free? There are definitely negative consequences to becoming debt free. I like to ask this question to my clients when they're not hitting numbers that they want to hit. It's like, what's the negative consequences of making a lot of money? Because there's a lot. What's the negative consequences to becoming debt free? Well, now maybe you have to learn to actually manage the money that comes in instead of just putting it all to debt or putting it all here or putting it there. You have to really become consciously aware of your money. Are you scared of managing your money? Are you scared you'll fuck it up? Are you scared you'll spend it all? There's lots of fears and things that I had to come up against and say, what is holding me back from actually becoming debt free? Where do I think I can't handle this? Number three, creating positive habits that help me to feel good that didn't involve spending money is a big, huge, I was gonna say a big one because it's like big and huge mixed together, really just changed my life. And honestly, I have the pandemic to thank. I really started my debt payoff journey during the pandemic. And I bet there's tons of people out there who really started changing their money spending habits once the pandemic happened. It's because all of a sudden you start to notice, hey, maybe I do like buying lattes, but I don't need to buy one every day to feel good. Maybe I don't need to spend money on manicures to feel good. Maybe I don't need a massage every month to feel good. I started noticing I had to find different ways to feel good. Exercise became really fun for me. It became something that I like to do and I spend time doing, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to exercise. I found different ways to just enjoy life, whether it was just, having these little moments with my daughter when she's playing or going for a walk, just those little things started to bring me joy more than spending money did. And I noticed how those positive money habits have stayed with me. And I've started to notice, now that everything's opening up again and we're starting to get back to a place of normal, I want to spend more money, but I have to check in with myself and say, like, what's going on? Like, why do I want to spend more money here? Number four, instead of using Dave Ramsey's baby steps, I found what felt really good to me was to get rid of the debt that made me feel shitty first instead of tackling the one with the highest APR. Or there's also the snowball effect, which is where you tackle the smallest debt first. And to me, it was way more about tackling the debt that felt like I fucked up. Like, tackle the debt that didn't feel good. Like, tackle the debt where you regret, spending that money. And it has nothing to do with the APR. It has nothing to do with the psychology of being able to continue to spend more money. It's just emotion, just the emotion you have around that debt. If you have a credit card and you put something on it for like an ex-boyfriend and now you hate that credit card debt, pay off that one first. Or if you invested money into a business investment that went bad and man, you have a lot of shame around that, pay off that one first. I like to go with the emotions. Which one creates the most emotion for you? Because once that debt is done, you automatically feel rewarded. Because you feel lighter, you feel better, you feel smarter, you feel more in control, you feel more powerful, and you just feel like I can keep doing this now because I feel less shackled to those really negative emotions I have around debt. Number 5, seeing where my money could be going instead of just paying down debt. Now, here's where I use the investment calculator again. And I calculated, I'll leave the link down below to use the investment calculator if you want to try this out. Might make you cringe, it might motivate you. Fair warning. I calculated how much money I could have made if I put my money into a Roth IRA, an index fund, or a 401k, my $21,000. And it was pretty upsetting to see how much money I could have made. It was pretty upsetting to see that. But seeing it also motivated me to be like, hey, you've paid off $21,000. Guess what you get to do? You get to make that $21,000 again, and you get to put that into a 401k. You get to put that into a Roth IRA, and you get to watch that money grow. If you never paid off this debt before, you would just not be able to see your money grow at all. And I thought about, wow, how exciting is it going to be when I'm debt free? It's going to be so freeing, and I can see my financial future actually being wealthy. I can see my financial future actually being stable. I can see myself having a good, healthy retirement. I could see myself making more money from doing nothing with my money, but just letting it sit there. Like, how cool is that? So, this is something that I would say take with caution. If it's going to break your heart and stop you on your debt journey, don't do it. But if it's something that could motivate you because then you could see the potential for what you could do with your money, then go ahead and do it. Yeah. Number 6, create a 3-month savings account instead of just the $1,000 emergency account before paying off debt. Like I said before, it's the same thing. I thought that I could just pay off my debt in these big chunks when I had these big months in my business. Maybe you come into some money and you think like, great, I'll just throw this all to my credit card debt. No, it's savings first and then debt second. So again, the $1,000 is not enough for me, and it doesn't make me feel like I would be able to stay out of debt if I only had the $1,000. Now, I'm sure he says to build the emergency account after you've paid off the debt. And I know that there's a lot of financial reasons why, and you'll lose money and all this other stuff. But I'm telling you that if you are someone who has fluctuating income, and who doesn't nowadays, right? Like, no one gets to keep a job for years and years and years like before. There's lots of career changes we're all making. There's lots of financial things that happen all the time with everyone. So, what I would really, really suggest is that creating a 3-month savings account instead of the $1,000 emergency account. So, here's the thing, in the end, you know what really matters? Whether you resonate with my advice, you resonate with Dave, you resonate with Susie, you resonate with someone else on here, another financial YouTuber, whatever it is. If you can find a way of managing money that helps you to pay off debt, become wealthy, and save money, it doesn't matter as long as you find the way that works for you. If you still have not found it yet, try my way. If you still don't find it after doing my way, try someone else. Don't give up on this journey of figuring out the best way that you can become debt free, that you can become wealthy, that you can save money in your way. But it doesn't just have to be done in one person's way. There are so many different ways to get to this place of financial freedom. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining me on this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's a piece of this that you like or you don't like, which we know YouTube will always tell you what they don't like, please tell me down below. And if there's any questions you have about my financial journey, about that I've had about paying off $21,000 of debt, following this really different way of paying off money. I mean, paying off debt. And I have found it through actually connecting to my emotions of money. Feel free to leave any questions you have down below. And again, if you enjoyed this video, you are a coach, a small business owner, a freelancer, and you're wondering how you can pay off debt with your fluctuating income, subscribe, hit the like button, and hit the bell for notifications. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.